Hello, and welcome to the next little video involving classical conditioning. This is the practical applications of classical conditioning. Okay, this video should be relatively short. We're going to go through some ways that you can use classical conditioning in the real world to change behavior. So the first one is called aversion therapy. Okay, aversion comes from the word averse, meaning not liking, don't want to be near it. Okay, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to use classical conditioning to stop people doing a behavior, to learn that one thing is not pleasurable. Okay, so for example, behavior therapy that uses classical conditioning principles to rid people of undesired behaviors. It could be alcoholism. Okay, so in this case it is by pairing it with an unpleasant stimulus, disgust, pain or nausea. Okay, a common one that people use with their kids is that to stop nail biting, they paint their nails with a bad tasting substance. Okay, that's a pretty common one. You may or may not have had that. All right, so for example, if we're talking about getting an alcoholic to stop drinking, okay, then we might use this process. So drugs, which is an unconditioned stimulus, so a drug that causes you to feel sick, nauseous in the stomach, okay, which is the unconditioned response, we pair that with alcohol consumption. So every time the alcoholic drinks a beer, they have one of these tablets, or we put the tablets in their beer. So once they drink that beer, they then feel sick, nauseous in the stomach, okay? We pair them together enough, then the alcohol consumption, which was a neutral stimulus, becomes a conditioned stimulus, okay? And the conditioned response, of course, is feeling sick. So therefore, they stop drinking alcohol because they think, or they learn, that drinking alcohol makes them sick. Now, there are some issues with this, okay? One of them is that people struggle to generalize, okay? So you think about the alcoholics, the extinction rate would be very high, so sometimes alcoholics would return to drinking once they had stopped taking the drug, or if they've associated with drinking beer, they might go to drinking some other alcohol like scotch or bourbon or something like that. Okay, so they're still drinking alcohol, which is damaging to them. They just don't drink the beer because beer makes them sick, but scotch or bourbon doesn't. Okay. Sometimes people do this even when they're trying to give up cigarettes, and they think that, you know, if you pair some sort of horrible taste with a type of cigarette, they associate it with that brand. So it might be a certain brand of cigarettes. And so if I don't smoke those cigarettes, it's okay, it won't taste bad. All right? So that's aversion therapy. You're trying to get people to stop doing a behavior. Next, this is a big one. This is called graduated exposure. If you ever have any sort of phobia, this is usually what they will do for you. Okay? Some people call it cognitive behavioral therapy as well, okay, or a very basic form of cognitive behavior therapy. But this is called graduated exposure. Okay, so using the classical conditioning principles, okay, to decrease a fear response. So gradually exposing the individual to stimuli that is increasingly similar to the conditioned stimulus until the conditioned response is extinguished. We're going to talk, this will make more sense in the example. All right, so graduated exposure used to help treat phobias and other mental health problems. Okay, and basically it's gradually reducing the level of stress, fear or anxiety that you have somewhere along the line associated with a particular stimulus. So, graduated exposure. There's a couple of steps to making this work, okay? One of them is you have to break down the situation into a series of steps. So if you've got a fear of something, okay, you kind of have to figure out the worst case scenario and then work backwards from there. So step 2 is you rank these steps from least scary to most scary. So if you've got, some people have a really intense fear of something, and I'm going to use this example again because there's quite a few people who'll be watching this that will get this. If you've got a fear of dogs, right, the most fearful thing is if a dog is running at you and you've got nowhere to go. Okay, that would be the scariest possible situation for you. But then there's another situation where maybe patting a dog is scary, or being in the same area as a dog is scary. For some people who have really, really intense phobias, it can be looking at a picture of a dog makes them scared, or even a cartoon of a dog makes them really scared. Okay, so I know we don't have anybody watching this who's as scared of dogs as that, but there are some people who have some fears of dogs, and there are some people who have overcome those fears using elements of this. So step 3 is what you do is once you've put them in order, you attempt to do the least scary step on the list, and then once you do that, then you kind of talk yourself through some calming activities to say you're okay. Okay. Now there's an example coming up here, which I'm going to show you now, which talks about fear of flying. Okay. Now, so basically, if the scariest thing for you, well, it's not even up there. The most frightening thing would be the plane crashing, right? But the thing that makes you think about that is experiencing turbulence, right, where the plane shakes around and stuff. Okay, so that's the scariest thing. The second scariest thing is taking off. Okay, the next scariest thing after that is taxiing down the runway. Then the scariest thing after that is getting on the plane. Then the scariest thing after that is waiting to get on the plane and then traveling to the airport and then buying a ticket. Okay, so if you're scared of flying, these are the steps that might occur for you. So what you might do is you might say, okay, I'm going to get on an airplane. You don't actually have to get on the airplane, but if buying a ticket is on your list and that's the least frightening thing, then you're going to go buy a ticket. Now, buying a ticket to get on a plane may cause you to be a little bit anxious, a little bit scared, a little bit nervous. So what you would do then is once you've bought the ticket, then you use a number of things. You can either use some relaxation techniques where you might do, not a meditation, but, muscle relaxing and those kinds of things. Or you might talk to yourself and say, okay, I bought the ticket, nothing bad happened, it's okay, we're okay. Okay? Talk yourself through that. Then what you do is you drive to the airport. Now, once you drive to the airport to get on the plane, you don't actually have to get on the plane. You just drive to the airport. Once you drive to the airport, you might do it once, you might do it twice. Each time you drive to the airport, you say, okay, I'm okay, safe, nothing bad has happened. You talk yourself through it, you do some relaxing activities. So the stimulus is traveling to the airport, okay? And then so that would usually cause anxiety, but you're changing the result. You're pairing traveling to the airport with relaxation, okay? So you're changing the conditioned response. Because it's only through conditioning that you have paired traveling to the airport with being scared. Because what you're really scared of is turbulence. Turbulence makes you scared, that's natural. Okay? But traveling to the airport shouldn't make you scared. So what you're doing is you're changing the conditioned response. Waiting to get on the plane, again, you're changing the conditioned response. You're now turning the conditioned response into relaxation. Or you make your way all the way up. Even to experiencing mid-air turbulence, which is going to be the hardest one, you have to try and get yourself to get used to feeling relaxed. When turbulence comes, get a little bit nervous, but you don't freak out. You start to calm yourself, you relax your muscles, you calm yourself down. Okay? The other type is flooding. This is just, sometimes you see it on television shows where someone who's really, really scared of bugs or something gets put in a big cage or case and then they pour bugs all over them. This is as it sounds. If you flood a house, you just fill it with water. If you want to use flooding to get rid of your fear of dogs, you would sit on the basketball courts, we would open the door, put 60 dogs into the cage with you and then lock the gate. And you would absolutely freak out at the start. Okay? You would absolutely just panic and you would be running around crazy, but then after a while you would realize that nothing's happening to you because usually your fear is irrational. The dogs usually wouldn't mind you. They might come up and lick you or sniff you and that's it. And then eventually your conditioned response would decrease, and then extinguish. Okay? People usually do this with fear of lifts or claustrophobia or even agoraphobia, which is a fear of outdoors. And sometimes they do it with fear of things. So if you're scared of dogs or scared of bugs or scared of rats or whatever. Okay? But flooding is as it sounds. It's just basically putting you into direct contact with the stimulus and holding you there until the conditioned response goes away. Then we have another case like what we call one trial learning, okay, and taste aversion. This is like classical conditioning, but you don't need to do any pairing. Now, there's an argument that it's not really classical conditioning, but I'll explain why as we go through. Taste aversion, a conditioned response that results from making an association between a particular food and feeling sick after eating it. Usually you only need one bad experience, okay? And that's why we call it one trial learning. It usually happens with food, okay? That's the most common thing. So if you eat food, okay, and it makes you feel really sick, okay, then that's enough. You probably don't want to eat that again, all right? If it's not food, and sometimes this happens with patients who have chemotherapy, okay? So usually after they have chemotherapy, it's not good for your body. It makes your body feel really sick and makes you feel not nice. So what some people do, unfortunately, is that they say, okay, I'm going to eat my favorite meal because that's going to make me feel better because it's my favorite food. And then they only have to eat it once, and then because of the chemotherapy it makes them horribly sick, then it's no longer their favorite food, and often they can't eat it ever again. They only need to have that happen once. Okay? That's pretty sad. You can have other types of one trial learning, and it is the form of learning that involves a change in behaviour that occurs with only one experience. Now, I've already asked Sauda if I'm allowed to use this example, but Sauda, you may or may not know, was involved in a nasty accident at the back of her house, at the road behind her house. She's only in one accident, but now she feels nervous and unsafe about going near that road. She was only in one accident. She didn't pair that accident she wasn't in a number of accidents on that road or near misses. It was one accident, and now she feels a bit nervous and her behaviour has changed because of that one event. Okay, and that's one trial learning. It only had to happen once. So there is still some debate over whether one trial learning is a type of classical conditioning, and you can see some similarities and some differences here. The first two are the same. Strong association between stimuli, of course. An automatic response, again, of course. The difference is here in one trial learning, you only take one association. With classical conditioning, it can take several repeated associations. Okay? With one trial learning too, it's strong, it sticks, it's hard for it to extinguish. Okay, so the extinction thing is a lot stronger with classical conditioning. And also, there's very rarely stimulus generalization. Okay, so poor Sauda isn't scared of all roads, just the one at the back of her house. So that's it for classical conditioning. You've seen the practical applications today, and there will be questions on this stuff in your textbook and for us to do in class. Thanks.